One of the most important things you can do to stay injury free as a runner is to really look after your ankles and your feet, because after all, they're the things that are making contact with the ground and absorbing a lot of the impact. If you have reduced flexibility and mobility through your feet and your ankles, what will happen is it will transfer a lot of that impact and load up towards the knees and the hips. So it's important to make sure that we can move the ankles and the feet through a full range of motion in all different directions, just to make sure if we're running on uneven ground that we can absorb that impact and that undulation quite comfortably. As I said, the key thing with any mobility work is to try and move through as big a range of motion as possible, and as you progress over the days, weeks and months, to try and increase that range of motion. The key here is to try and keep your legs completely flat on the floor and just make sure that all the movement is coming from the ankles. And as we're rolling around, we're pointing the toes out to the sides as far forward as you can, and as you come back in towards the middle, right into the middle, and then finally stretching your toes up towards your chest. Once you've done that in both directions, say for 10 reps each way, we want to try and sort of turn the foot left to right. Some people find this quite difficult because it's not a movement that we ever practice, but if we're going to be running on uneven ground or on a slope, then it's really important that our ankles are able to sort of bend and flex in this way. And lastly, the most common thing we think of when it comes to running is flexing and extending at the ankle. So we're going to push our toes as far away from our body as we can, really get that stretch, point the toes forward, and then we're going to lift our toes up towards our chest, get a real good stretch through the calves and the Achilles tendon there. The sole of the foot is actually responsible for taking a lot of the impact, and for those of you covering long distances, if you don't look after your feet, sometimes that can cause some damage to the sole of the feet and you can end up with something called plantar fasciitis. So all we want to do is just take a lacrosse ball or a massage ball, whatever we've got available, and just roll that underneath our foot, making sure to sort of get every point of the foot, particularly the instep and the heel, and if there are any particularly tight spots, just to focus on those for a little longer. Once we've covered that, then it's time just to stretch out the feet, and the way that we can do this is to go into an all fours position, then lift our knees up from the floor and push our weight in through our toes, and you'll feel that really stretch the underside of the foot. Then what you can do is roll your feet inwards, just focus more around the big toe area, and then roll your feet to the outside just to cover the rest of the toes and find where you've got that tightness specifically. Lastly, come up onto your toes so they bend back towards the bottom of your feet. Do the same thing again, just to stretch out the top of your foot and through the arch. So here's a list of what I'd recommend for each drill in terms of number of repetitions, and I'd also recommend doing the drill at least daily, ideally twice a day, and if you've got a particular problem area, then to spend a little bit more time on that until it resolves itself. As always, if you've got a serious problem that won't go away, it's always recommended to go and see a healthcare professional. Any questions, just pop them in the comments and I'll get back to you with an answer.